Hello and welcome to Part of the People with me, Graeme Pryce. When I first started making videos, I was always spoiled for choice for things to make them about because the Tories were still in office and they were cranking out about 2 or 3 scandals a week, weren't they? It would be Rishi's son twat making jokes about trans people during PMQs on Wednesday while the mother of a murdered trans teenager was in the gallery, followed by Suella Braverman explaining why it's right and justified to call asylum seekers an invasion of vermin on the Sunday, followed by, some backbencher getting caught noncing on WhatsApp on the Tuesday, wouldn't there? Anyway, I think the Tories' main issue was that they didn't give the simple-minded folk a hero to worship in their last few years, did they? I mean, nobody was ever likely to name Rishi Sunak as the most inspiring leader in UK history, and I'm absolutely certain nobody in the future will say that about Kemi Badenoch. The last bit of hero worship the Tories enjoyed was when Boris Johnson rode a similar wave of lies, stupidity, hatred and division to power that Trump has just done across the pond. Well, Johnson is thankfully gone now, and hopefully for good. But those that have taken his place for the right, the further right, the far right, and the fascist fucking extreme right are probably no better. In fact, I'd say the worst. So, if any of you watching this video clicked on it because you saw a picture of your favourite politician, grifter or right-wing knob rocket in the thumbnail, hang around because I've got a question for you right after this little blast from the past. Hey, sorry to interrupt me. I won't keep you long. There are 4 things that YouTube uses in its algorithms. It's whether you've liked, commented and subscribed and how long you've watched the video for. If you could do just one of those 4 things and maybe watch a little bit longer than you thought you might otherwise, it would really, really help. Thank you very much indeed. I was tempted to do a little experiment to prove my point when I was thinking about making this video. I was going to go around the Twitter pages of the 4 people in the thumbnail and say something maybe a little bit mean or controversial, but definitely true, and see what the responses were. But then I realised I knew exactly what the responses would be, because they're always the same and they're always equally as stupid and usually factually incorrect. Nigel Farage is a good example to begin with. The comment sections of anything mentioning Farage are in some ways hilarious, but in other ways extremely disappointing and frustrating. Let's leave out the emotional adjectives just for a minute and just state some facts about Nigel that are not contested by anybody. His teachers when he was in school and in university noted in more than one report that he had some racist and far-right ideals. He got in trouble for walking around drunk singing Hitler Youth songs when he was a teenager. What fucking teenager even knows Hitler Youth songs? I was listening to Steps and Ace of Base when I was a teenager. The Doors, Queen, not Hitler Youth songs. Anyway, after a stint of working in banking, he became a member of the European Parliament, where he was noted for very rarely turning up and being an obnoxious liar when he did turn up. He rode a wave of anti-EU sentiment to popularity and then told the whole country a compendium of appalling lies over a long period leading up to the Brexit referendum. While he convinced you to vote for something that would end your freedom of movement, he kept his because he has a German wife. He was instrumental in getting Boris Johnson elected, leading to the worst government in UK history, and has now fashioned something he calls a political party, but it's really a thing that mostly exists to agitate, incite division and funnel money into the pockets of people who are already rich. He's since admitted Brexit was a failure, and a lot of what was said during the referendum was actually empty promises. He's a populist con man, a hypocrite and a liar, but he has some very rich friends, doesn't he? Which leads me on to Donald Trump. You go onto anything mentioning Donald Trump on Twitter or Facebook and have a look at the comments, and you'll see actual British people who claim to be adults with critical thinking skills hero worshipping Donald Trump and saying we could do with a leader like that in the UK. These are the same people that were encouraging America to invade the UK a few weeks back. You know, real patriots. Donald Trump has been convicted of 32 felonies by a jury of very carefully selected and definitely impartial people. Convicted and sentenced, though he managed to get himself elected a few weeks before sentencing, coincidentally. So the judge was powerless to do anything other than issue an unconditional discharge. He's been civilly convicted of raping a woman, and the only reason it was a civil case was because the statute of limitations had been exceeded. He was given the opportunity to provide a DNA sample, which would have cleared him easily, but he refused to do so. Wonder why that was. On January the 6th, 2021, he encouraged his most hardened and riled up supporters to march on the Capitol building. This was his last gasp attempt to subvert democracy after he'd already tried to bully the governors of various states into saying he had won when he hadn't, attempting to send fake electors to the White House and say that he'd won when he hadn't, falsifying documents to say he'd won when he hadn't, and eventually trying to scare the vice president into becoming the first vice president ever to ignore the Constitution and refuse to fulfill his role in the peaceful handover of power. 4 people died that day, and Donald Trump sat watching the events unfold for 2 hours in the White House on television, apparently, while everybody around him begged him to do something. When he did eventually speak, he called those people patriots. He went on to lose 69 court cases that he tried to use to lie and cheat his way back into office. Most were thrown out through complete lack of evidence, and he's now pardoned people that were involved, including rioters that beat a man to death with a fire extinguisher. Pardoned them. Fuck's sake. When Boris Johnson was an ugly, pudgy, children of the corn looking overprivileged little crotch gremlin called Alexander de Feifel, he was asked what he wanted to be when he grew up, and his answer was King of the World. I know I said I was leaving the emotional adjectives out, but this is Ballbag Johnson we're talking about, so it's just not possible. He lied and brass-necked his way through various posh educational facilities before landing various jobs he didn't deserve by claiming to be a journalist, before using his well-honed, buffoonish and ludicrous character to get himself elected as Mayor of London, which he was fucking terrible at and wasted millions and millions in utterly ridiculous projects. He had a stint as Foreign Secretary where he said something so stupid that it resulted in British author Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe being detained in Iran for far longer than she should have been because he made a slip of the tongue and said she was a journalist rather than an author. That didn't seem to get much traction though, and neither did the atrocious things he'd said in the past about British people being lazy or women in hijabs looking like letterboxes or tank-topped bum boys. No, pretty much everything he did was either brushed under the carpet or portrayed and spun by the media in some way to suggest that it just wasn't that bad and we should just move on. Before long, he was campaigning to be Prime Minister because he was leader of the Conservative Party, and they had realised just what can be achieved when you're led by somebody with absolutely no shame, no morals, and no sense of public decency. He went ahead and told all the lies that the thick people needed to hear. He told all the lies that the party needed to hear. And he told all the lies that were necessary to smear his opposition. And then he hid in a fucking fridge when he was challenged about it. Knowing that Labour would likely use the NHS as leverage against him in their campaign, he concocted a whole new lie and proposed that his government would build 40 new hospitals. Who couldn't want that? Vote for me. Then he went on to be finally exposed as the most dishonest and disgraceful PM in UK history. And even after that, he refused to leave Number 10 for months, after it was very clear he wasn't wanted. Hung around like a fucking fart in a lift. And then we've got this twat, little Tommy 10 names. Waxy Lemon himself. This guy has almost as many convictions as Trump. And he's pleaded guilty to almost all of them. So, let's not pretend there's some sort of witch hunt going on here. You don't plead guilty to crimes that you haven't committed. From beating up an off-duty police officer while coked up and pissed, through mortgage fraud and football hooliganism, to the contempt of court and an injunction for stalking a journalist who had exposed some of his lies about Muslims. Tommy has really excelled himself in his criminal career. He's boasted in online videos about how he can score some gear in whatever country he goes to, and about how his supporters pay his mortgage and fund his lavish lifestyle and his 10-week-long holidays in Cyprus. He doesn't really hide it, to be honest. His most recent effort to drain those that follow him of their universal credit or disability allowance was to make a documentary called Silenced, about how terrible life is in the UK because of all the Muslims. Only it turned out most of it was bullshit, and the people it was about successfully brought a case against him for slander. He was told not to show the documentary again, because it contained obvious disinformation. But he spotted a bit of anti-Muslim sentiment rising in London in 2024, didn't he? So he quickly got involved and showed the video to an audience anyway. This was knowing that there was utter disinformation in this video. This was knowing that he had told lies about people in this video. He decided to repeat those lies and show it to everyone anyway. What a guy. Now, I've chosen these four because they are extreme examples, but there are a lot of other right-wing figureheads that could have taken the place, isn't there? A lot of them would be Tories or Tory supporters as well, and I suspect more would be Reform UK people if they didn't only have 5 MPs. The question I wanted to ask is why? I mean, I know you have to have quite a short attention span to be a fan of any of these people, obviously, but it can't just be that, can it? If you're in a room full of people and you mention Tommy Robinson, the majority will have a disgusted look on their face, and a few will tell you that they hate him, but there will be some little dumbass sat in the corner thinking, I don't hate him, I think he's a fucking hero. He just fucking tells it like it is. He speaks the fucking truth, lad. It's much the same with the other three as well. Even now, after all this time and all the lies, it isn't hard to find some dickhead who thinks the UK would be a better place if we brought back Boris. It's not even that unusual to find people simping for Putin these days on social media. Why is it that you choose these people? When you were a teenager and the world was at your feet, did you think you would be too busy or lazy or easily fooled into being an adult that lets other people, often the worst people in the world, do your thinking for you? Did you think you'd be the leader of your own life, but now you check what Tommy Robinson's Twitter feed has posted every morning before you even get out of bed? Did you think you'd be a proud adult with lovely kids and a beautiful wife, But now you're sat in HMP alt course doing a stretch for throwing a brick at a policeman because Nigel Farage made you think there was about to be an ethnic cleansing of Muslims. And you believed Andrew Tate's lies on Twitter. Is that you? I'd guess any supporters of these people have clicked off this video by now. But if you haven't, let me tell you this. You make me fucking cringe. What you have allowed to happen to you since you left school or whatever has made you think that you need to be led through life by whichever liar shouts the loudest. Go look in the mirror and ask yourself what you would have thought of the person you've become when you were 16 years old. Bet you didn't think you'd be sat there with a phone in your hand, waiting for someone to argue with about how Trump will make America great again. Or why we should just accept that Boris was ambushed with a birthday cake. Or why you didn't make a mistake believing Nigel and voting for Brexit. Because it just wasn't done properly. And it would have been great if we'd gone for no deal and been happy to eat sovereignty for the next 15 years. Why are you allowing these people to tell you what your world should be like instead of building it yourself? What happened to your dreams? Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. A bit of an odd one, I know, but in some ways, this video is aimed at people who will almost certainly not watch it all and definitely not give a coherent answer if they do. Maybe that makes me points more than anything. I'd love a couple of reformers or magaloons to prove me wrong and give me a full rebuttal of everything I've said in this video, but we all know that they won't. What is most likely to happen is that they'll be too busy watching GBBs or wishing the sun still had tits on page 3 to even see this video. I suppose the fact that none will answer and justify why they hero worship these people is an indication of something in itself. Maybe I should just take that as my answer and try and move on from there, as Boris would say. It remains to be seen. Anyway, if you'd like to help the channel out, then all the links to PayPal, Patreon and the Buy Me a Coffee thing are loitering suspiciously in the descriptions box, and the button for memberships is below, as always. Now obviously, that isn't all I have to say, but it is as much of what I've got to say as I'm going to say today. Ta-ra. You've gotten this far. It's been a bit of an odd one, I know, but in some ways this video is just